So today I want to have a fun discussion about ancient Greece, right? And I make quite a lot of conversations about ancient Greece. And the reason is because, in general, I challenge people's views about the most important things in life. And so if I make a conversation about ancient Greece, it seems to the person as though we are talking about something that is very far removed, right? Now, I mentioned that I consider ancient Greece to be very important, but it has the feeling that we're talking about something that's removed, right? That we're just, discussing. So here's how I get into it, right? I bring up the idea of aliens, right? There's all this speculation, when are we ever going to discover alien life, right? And me being into Platonism, I'm not going to be impressed with aliens until we find aliens that can speak, right, about how to live well. Because it seems to me that, in general, speaking, right, with symbolic speech like we do is the highest form of communication, right? There's nothing really more sophisticated than that, right? Like, even if you have aliens that communicate with telekinesis, they'll still do it with some sort of symbolic language, right? It's like, even if we're reading each other's minds, we're still reading symbols. So that's pretty much as high as it gets, and that's where we are. So that's pretty cool. But let's say they find, some single-cell organisms on Jupiter or something, right? I find that completely uninteresting, right? Not interested at all. Let's say they find some dogs over there on Venus, right? Dogs are good for, for company, but they're not really satisfying in terms of life, right? So what I tell people is that there is actually a way that we can study aliens like this, right? That communicate with speech, right? And that's the ancient Greeks, right? Because they left so much material for us to consider. So the ancient Greeks are the closest that we can get to studying literal aliens, right? Obviously, they're not literal aliens, but they might as well be aliens, right? They had very different, their word is tropoi, right? They had very different ways than we do, right? They're like an alien race, okay? What's important to us was not really what's important to them, right? They might as well have been, raised on the other side of the galaxy, and someone will say to me, oh, but the Greeks had so much influence on us, right? And that's true, but, it's like the telephone game, right? The influence is distorted, after a few steps, and, it's not exactly recognizable to the ancient Greeks, in my opinion. So a lot of times what people will say is like, well, why do I care what the ancient Greeks think, right? Like, maybe my alien story isn't enough for them, and I say to them, well, we should care what they think just because they were so different. Isn't that what we want? Do we want different points of view? Don't we want to meet different people? Don't we want to celebrate diversity? Well, there's nothing more diverse than getting the ancient Greeks in here, right? Hashtag ancient Greek lives matter, right? So the guy who, in the 20th century, restarted the tradition of considering the ancient Greeks was this guy right here, Leo Strauss, right? That's Leo Strauss right there. I got into Leo Strauss about 3.5 years ago. I have been studying ancient Greece mainly since then. I study a lot of things, but that's been probably the main thing. I've done a lot of studying piano, actually, also. And I'm competent, but I'm no expert, right? I can make ancient Greece very interesting, but I learn from experts. That's how I know that I'm not an expert. And, really I should learn ancient Greek, right? That's kind of a monumental task. I'll hopefully get to it one of these days. And it just so happens that I live on the same block as a used bookstore that has a dollar rack. Okay, so once or twice a week I walk by and they have the dollar racks right outside. I'm able to peruse the dollar rack. So I have tons of books. I'm not going to show you them all right now. They're right over there, but I just sort of went through them all and pulled out a bunch of ancient Greek books I want to show you. So we're gonna hit this. Now, I left some out, I use some discipline. We're not going to look at all of my books related to ancient Greece. I just want to give you an idea of what it's like to really be interested in a subject and study it. Okay, so I just wanted to add one more thing to this TLDR version of ancient Greek aliens, and it's along the lines of how the ancient Greeks are so different, and that's why they're important, right? We cannot understand ourselves unless we take a look at ourselves from an outside point of view, right? It's very important. It's very central. Okay, right? It's very central to, I might say epistemology. We need an outsider's perspective, right? And it's not just that, but it's very necessary for us to look at ourselves as living in this thing called modernity, right? We live in the modern world. Right? So, we are of the modern world. We are modern people. And the point is that the only way we can understand the modern world is if we look at it from a perspective from outside of the modern world. That's the ancient world. And, there may be no better candidates than Plato and Aristotle and the ancient Greeks because they left us so much. So, check out my full-length video where I introduce you to all my books, a lot of my books, and, hashtag Ancient Greek Lives Matter, hashtag Plato did nothing wrong, hashtag West Side, hashtag Strauss for the win, right? Thank you.